which included taking a look at the letters of the alphabet, moving on to the three different cases, which in Arabic were right, okay, right, shukran, the graphics, right. The thing is that we also took a look at the three different cases in Arabic where which words can be in, which is either nominative, genitive, or accusative. And really, we took as a rule that by default, all words, all nouns will be nominative, as in marfu, will end in the word un. We also then looked at some interrogatives, question words like ma and man, who and what. We looked at masculine, feminine, and what are the rules for femininity. Let's just before we just very quickly start today, can you just maybe shout out or quickly chat in what were the rules for femininity? How do we know if a noun is feminine?
Ta marbuta.
Right, na'am. Ta
Cities,
marbuta.
countries.
Cities, countries, good. We've got body parts there
Dual
by
body parts.
Dual body parts. Shukran. That's more accurate. Dual body parts is correct here. And also things like letters of the Arabic alphabet. Yeah.
I think
so. Okay, with that.
Like girls' names.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, obviously. I mean, things which are inherently feminine will always remain feminine. And we did touch up on the point that sometimes you'll get words with ta marbuta in there. They will be masculine if they are masculine, regardless of the ta. So things like the name Hamza, things like the name Talha or the word Khalifa, and so on. Right. And sometimes you get the title Allama. For example, people say this shares an Allama. That has a ta marbuta at the end of it, but it is still masculine. Right. Okay. Today, what we're going to take a look at is to understand and apply. If any of you have still got your mics activated, I mean, maybe mute them. Maybe that's what's causing some of the interference to some of the people. Until, like, you want to ask a question or something. So if you maybe mute your mic, because that might be what's causing the interference for some of you catching up. Right. So today, session 2, Quranic Arabic, inshallah, we're on our way. And I know it seems that we're at the beginning, but it won't be long before, inshallah, we've reached our destination, bi'ithnillah. Today we're going to take a look at, we've got sun and moon letters. What on earth are these things? We're going to try and understand. Also, demonstrative nouns, some more demonstrative nouns. We took a look at hada and hadihi last lesson, but we're going to take a look at some more today. Past tense verbs, and this is the interesting one. And this is where things will start to really now pick up pace. And in addition to that, we're going to take a look, we're going to recap some personal pronouns whilst we're doing that as well. So, inshallah, it's quite a bit to do, keeping that in mind. Right, okay, so let's begin, bi'ithnillah. Right, first of all, if you want to be following this on the book, right, and Nadeem, I did have yours scanned to you, like I mentioned. This will be page 115. On your book, Unit 7. That's where we're beginning. That's the Arabic text that will accompany it. So, moving along. Right, sun and moon letters. Now, what on earth are these things, basically? Well, to start off with, the words sun and moon are quite coincidental in this particular thing. There isn't like a myth or a legend to go with it, unfortunately. But what there is, it's all to do with the definite article. Now, what on earth does that mean? What was the page? The page was, if you take a look at 115 for now, which should read Unit 7, Lesson 2. It's in Arabic. It's Arabic text. Right. Okay. Now, any idea how so far we've been taking a look at nouns, and they've all been they've been reading like a book. You've been reading things like an eye, a door, a house, a man, so on. Right, now there is no actual word in Arabic for a. We've just been understanding it. So we just understand that whenever a noun appears, and it appears the way it does, it will always have a. It will read in that sense indefinitely. So we'll say that, you know, this is a book, a house. How do we say the? Any idea, people? The? Add al at the beginning. Ahsant, ahsant. So starting off, if you take a look right here, you've got a word. Right. Right. We've got a word, kitab. So you've taken a look at this. By the way, when I write dots, this is just something for us guys on this course. When I write dots, sometimes it might go on a bit like and look the way it is. That's because the digital pen I have just for some reason doesn't allow me to do just a simple dot. I have to kind of move it along a little. So, okay, kitab. Now that means a book. Now we add al to it, and you've got the book. Now, however, there is a rule at this point. Al is the definite article. Now, whenever al is added onto a word, right, what will happen is that word, if I just quickly, alright, change the graphics here. So if al is added onto a word, the tanween from that word cannot remain if al is on the word. So where this had tanween before, it will now just have one vowel at the end of it. So one of the dhammas, so it had two initially, one of them has been kind of cancelled out. Okay? So this is now just al-kitabu. That's how it will be read. Al-kitabu. Now you think, okay, that's one thing, that's one rule. But what's that got to do with sun letters and moon letters? Well, you see, some letters of the alphabet, not sun, but some of them, when al, the definite article, is attached before them, as it was in this case, so al-kitab, some of these letters, what will happen is that the lam will remain silent. So it will be kind of merged and blended into that letter. So let's take a look. So in this case, where we wrote al-kitab, that was clearly not the case. In that case, we did read it as al-kitab. But let's take a look at another another case. So if we say the word, I'm just trying to bring this here, thobe. Any idea what thobe is? Everybody should know what thobe is. Thobe, people? Type it in. No. Right, shukran, jubba. Yep. So if I write now a-thobe, right, now we will not read that as al-thobe, rather we will read it as a-thobe. And you'll see that there will be a W written on top of the letter, which is a shad, which means that you blend the alif straight into it. So you read it as a-thobe and not as al-thobe. Now, basically, any letters which are known as sun letters, which are in red, in this particular case, as you can see, ta, fa, dal, zal, ra, zai, sin, shin, sad, dad, ta, va, lam, and noon. Any of these letters, if they appear after the lam, and not just any lam, but the lam in the definite article, they will kind of blend in. And the only reason why they are called sun letters is because the word shams, the word shams has a sun letter in it. So the word shams means sun, and we've done that last lesson. So, and that's the way to remember it. A shams, which means sun, kind of blends in. It has a sun letter, whereas qamar, the word qamar, which means moon, has a moon letter, meaning that it cannot blend in. This is why they are called sun letters and moon letters. So if we take a look now, if we go back to these letters and if we kind of see some examples, this will be the rule, but we'll come back to the rule in a moment. Here's some practice right here. So if you can see down what you've got here, the right hand side here, which mentions al-huruf al-qamariya, the moon letters, we've got alif, ba, jim, and so on. All of these letters are moon letters, and what we've got on the left hand side there are the sun letters. Now at this stage you're probably thinking, well, am I going to have to memorize this? The answer is no, hopefully. I mean, you will not have to memorize these. The reason the Arabs have made these as sun letters, as in they merge in, because that's the way they naturally come across with ease. So it is easier for anybody who's, whether you're learning Arabic or you speak Arabic, to kind of blend these letters in as opposed to these. So if you were, let's take as an example, you see this word, the first word here, al-ab. Now if you were to try and blend that in and say ab, it would be quite weird. Like to blend an alif into an alif would just make it into a stretch. It would just be like it couldn't really merge in. It would either just become one letter or it couldn't really. So, and if you take a look at the next example, ba, you see, to say abab, I mean, it's not, I'm not saying that they're impossible to do, they're possible to do, but it's easier to say albab than it is to say abab. So you can try and say, imagine it had a W, it was merging into it, you're saying abab, and you can say that yourself, you can have a go. So if you were to say al-jannah as opposed to al-jannah, which is a lot easier. So akhubs as opposed to al-khubs, ayn as opposed to al-ayn. And on this side, you see, it's easier to say at-tajir as opposed to saying al-tajir. Or al-thawb, if you try and say aloud to yourselves, al-thawb, and then you say al-thawb, it's a lot easier to say al-thawb. Just as it is, like if you take a look at dhahab, gold as an example, to say al-dhahab is a lot easier than it is to say al-dhahab. And that works all the way through these. So, you know, to say al-talib will be a lot easier than al-talib, and you'll kind of just pick that up as you're going along. You'll recognize it. Usually as we're writing it, we'll have the W's written on top of them anyway, so you can kind of see that. But even if you can't, in some cases, you will realize that it is easier. So when you read Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, to say Bismillahir Rahman will be a bit more trickier than to say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So that's so you'll probably be kind of recognizing here. I see what it means now. So I mean, if we come back here, this is the rule basically for sun letters and moon letters. The letters before which the lam from al becomes silent and is merged in, and moon letters, the letters before which lam is pronounced. So I mean, if you want to make a note of that very quickly, right? Okay, and then we'll just move on from there. Right. Okay. Now we're ready to move on. Good. Yeah. Now. No. Still making no. Okay. لا أم نعم. نستمر. Should we continue? Okay. شكرا. نستمر. We'll continue. Right. So that's the sun letters and the moon letters. So if you take a look at page 115, which is unit 7 in your book, you will notice that the top unit, he has actually moon letters, letters which you cannot blend in, really, where you must recite the lamb. We must read the lamb, sorry. So al-ab, al-ba, wal-bab, al-jannatu, wal-harth, al-khubz, wal-ayn. And if you look at unit 8, they all seem to be sun letters. So at-turabu wal-thawb, ad-dunya wal-dhahab, al-rajulu wal-zahrat. So okay, so you'll kind of understand that. Okay, that you'll probably think, yeah, I get the gist of that now. Right, now coming back now to okay, so moving on from sun letters and moon letters to demonstrative nouns. Now, if you remember last week, we covered how to say this is. Can anybody remember that? This is. Naam. كيف نقول? How do we say this is? هذا, and the feminine. Okay, you've sort of jumped the gun there. That's هذا, هذه, excellent. So just in that case, I mean, if you've just recapping on that, then هذا and هذه, you'll notice that in parentheses I've kind of put is. Although I did mention as a rule last lesson that there is no is in the Arabic language, but that's just something we understand, so I've just put that in there. The two new demonstrative nouns, if we didn't cover them properly last lesson, that is ذَلِكَ, for that, something which is a bit more distant, and tilka, feminine, for that which is so once again, but this refers to something which is slightly distant, so that, and you've got hada, this. Okay, now if we did do that last lesson, then this is a bit of a recap in that case. So hada and hadihi, dhalika and tilka. And if you take a look at unit 9, which is page 116 in this book, he's using the demonstrative nouns with other words there. So he's got hada qalam wa dhalika thawb. Number 2, hadi jannatun wa tilka ghurfa. If we just very can everybody see that unit in front of them? Unit 9, right, which the Arabic text I'm referring to. If we take a look at let's say number 10, because there's only 10 examples there. Can you very quickly translate that for me? Number 10, and just write in the translation. Write in that translation for number 10. Alright, ahsant. This is a table and that is a girl. Right, ahsant. Right, good stuff. Samir seems to be on the ball here. Look at that. Very trigger happy almost with the with the keyboard. Right, so that's good. Right, now moving on. Right, personal pronouns. Now we did this last lesson, but as a recap for this, that huwa, hiya, anta, anti, and ana. Now this is very important, extremely important, that we all understand and know these, because I mean, most or many things that we will learn will be built upon this, especially verbs, which we'll take a look at today as well. So huwa, hiya, and remember we will always start from here, from third person, and we'll kind of make our way in. So huwa, hiya, anta, anti, ana. Right? Okay, so we're going to always work like that, just as a reminder for all of you. So huwa, hiya, anta, anti, ana. You must, whether it's rote learning or however, but you must kind of freeze that within your minds, that know that, like the back of your hand. And I pronounce it without like. Okay, that's a very good question. I can see good use of the Arabic keyboard there as well by Junaid ibn Ahmed. Right, so that's, you see, ana, coming to our whiteboard here. Right, now ana is one of those things which is written as with an extra alif at the end. So if we take a look at that. However, right, it is only pronounced as though the alif is not actually there. So it's pronounced as though it's just ana, as in, as though it looks like this. As in, it's just got that dot there. And that is how it is actually read, ana, like that. It's, the alif seems to be silent on this. Now, one reason that the Arabs had done that is because there does seem to be a character within the Arabic language, a particle which you'll come across later on, which is read as an. And there's quite a few others as well. There's anna, which we'll come across in perhaps, more sooner than later actually. Anna. And then there's inna, which is a particle which we'll come across. Now, right, so you've got this as well. Now, right now, what these mean isn't too important. But what is important, right, okay, that's a good question. I'll come to that. How do you pronounce that in the feminine? Okay, we'll come back to that. You pronounce it as tilka, but we'll come back to that in a moment. Just clarifying, why does this have an extra alif? You see, because ana is it's a pronoun, it's a word that is repeated so often within the Arabic language. It's not something like these other, like what we've got here. These inna and anna are repeated, but not as often. Now, an kind of appears quite a bit, and it's a particle which usually comes after verbs, and we'll learn about that. Now, if ana looked exactly like that, we would have a lot of confusion in the Arabic language, especially in reading written text. Because you have to remember, when the Arabs write, they don't write vowels. So the vowels are usually just understood. So when writing Arabic, right, so when we're actually, don't know why that froze there, right, when we're writing Arabic, and although now we will concentrate on vowels, but later on we will write without vowels, and we'll read without vowels. So if you're writing ana, you will just write it as just like that. So you won't bother with the vowels upon it, with the fatha and so on. Although I would want you guys at this stage to always write vowels, because it's very important that I know that you understand what the vowels are. But later on, as your Arabic becomes, why not read it as ana? Because it's not ana. They've actually given it an extra alif just to make it kind of distinguish it, really. So if I give an example, right, now it's unfortunately, see, you guys can't seem to join in and really write unless you can try with your mouses, maybe on the whiteboard. Shall I activate your? I'll activate your things, and maybe you can, maybe you can kind of have, using your mouse, you might be able to maybe write on. Alright, look at that, you're writing away there. Well done. Right, so right, okay. Let me give you an example. Right, how do you write the name? And I know Majid is drawing freehand. Well done, Majid. All right, now how would you write the name Umar? Or Umar in Arabic. I know we haven't got an Umar on the course. Got a few people, Majid competing. We've got we've got Nadim writing it over there. Umar, okay. Umar, we've got Amina is writing it there. I know it's difficult. It's difficult with the mouse. I recognize. Personally, it's difficult with this digital pen. It's not like writing with a normal pen. So we've got alright, we've got a whole, yeah, Sid is there as well. I can't see Junaid anyway. Alright, so somebody's like scribbling it all out. Alright, who's that? Yeah, this with purple. Right, Junaid is scrolling. Okay. Alright, that's, yeah, definitely that one. Is that you, Junaid?
No.
The maroon?
I'm
No?
in gold. I found out before.
Okay. Right. Go on then. Okay, right. So that's good. Okay. So let me bring, if you just take a look. So as you've written it, so this is Omar. Yep. Omar. That's how you write it, yeah. Now that's fine. I mean, it doesn't have a shad on it, but otherwise you all wrote that correctly. Now you've heard of the name Omar. Have you? Is that you, Junaid? Still scribbling in the background. Can you not be so distracted, please? Right. Now, have you heard of the name Ammar? How do you write the name Ammar? Which is with an ayn as well. Any idea, people? All right. We've got Omar, Omar, Omar. Right. Okay. I get the point. Now, you see, that's good. Right. So, right now, if I just clear that up. Right. That's good. However. Okay. Right. Now, that's all good, but the thing is, that's actually just writing Umar. Do you see? Now, if both Umar and Ammar were to be written like that, then how would you know which one is which? So you see, when some things are so recurring in the Arabic language, they have to have some distinction about them in order for people to be able to make out. And especially, remember, thinking back that in the time of the Arabs, especially in the time of like the Prophet ﷺ and so on, they didn't even used to have dots on the Arabic letters, let alone vowels. Vowels weren't, I mean, they used to speak vowels, but there was no characters invented for them yet. So, if we take a look right here, you see, the way what you were writing was, this is Umar, and remember that's without dots, because there would have been no dots or vowels, whatever. Now this is Ammar. You see, it's the same, except it has an extra silent wow at the end. And that's Ammar. And the reason that it is important is to distinguish that name from Umar. And the Arabs do that sometimes. So it's not, although it's not so common, we don't have so many things like the way we do in English, like so many silent letters and things like that. But occasionally, to distinguish and for the benefit of people and of learners, there are some distinctions time to time. Right, so that brings us back to Ana. Ana has that extra alif for exactly the same reason. I'll just get rid of that then. Right. So Ana, as you can see here, has that extra alif for the exact same reason. There is another word which we don't really need to worry too much about, but I'll show you an example as well, but we'll kind of come back to it in the future, where there is an extra alif, and it is the word 100. And sometimes mi'atun, sometimes it is just written without the, nowadays they do sometimes just write it without that extra alif, so it's just mi'atun, 100. Now really that is how it should be. I mean, this is how it should be, but that however is also correct. That's how they would write it in the olden days, especially when there were no vowels and things like that, in order to distinguish it from other words which were very recurring and very popular. So okay, so with that in mind, coming back to what we're concentrating on, personal pronouns. Huwa, hiya, anta, anti, ana. And we start in that order, like I mentioned. Right, now, moving on to a verb, past tense verb. Now, verbs are those things which are trapped within time. That's one of the definitions that Arabic kind of gives for verbs, really. It says actions which are caught within time, and it mentions that. So we're going to concentrate on the past tense. Now in Arabic, in Arabic it's called al-fi'l al-madi. Okay, the past tense verb. Now in Arabic, everything seems to have a huge structure. And this is good. This is really good for the learner because it means that everything is kind of explained in such a way that it all just seems to make sense. So we don't really need to worry too much about things. So if you're looking at your lesson, if we take a look at page 126, which is unit 10, but it's the kind of lesson where he's explaining the past tense verb. And you can see he's got something very similar to this written there, fa'ala. Now, I mentioned in Arabic, everything seems to have a structure. So the past tense verb has an archetype, a template. And that template is right now staring you all in the face. This is it, fa'ala. Fa'ala. If you all say to yourselves, fa'ala. Right, fa'ala, with the ayn as well. Concentrate on the ayn. Fa'ala, okay? So, fa'ala is a past tense verb. Right, okay, so right now I want us to understand some rules. And we can, if in a moment I'm going to show you these rules to kind of jot down. If you want, you can maybe make some very draft notes, and later on I'll present some notes to you which you can kind of make notes from. Now, so fa'ala. In Arabic, all verbs, as far as we're concerned, will look like this structure. So if we take this to be a template, and if we refer to, let's say, the fa as the radical fa, okay, or the essential fa, as in the essential first letter, and then the essential middle letter, or the essential ayn, or the radical ayn as he refers to it in the book, and then the lam likewise. Now, as far as we're concerned, every verb in Arabic will have three letters just like this. And it'll have these vowels. This is unlike English, where in English we've got things like, you see, like if you say went, you say sat. If I say he ate, he read. You see, now if we did not understand these verbs, like if we didn't understand the English meaning to those verbs, there was no way of identifying whether that was a verb. You see, to us that could have looked just like, as far as we're concerned, it could have been a noun. You see, so the only way, because nouns can look very similar as well in English, so the only way we can tell the difference is by understanding, by meaning. Now in Arabic we can tell the difference by structure as well. So this is our template, fa'ala. Now if any verb resembles that structure, we know straight away that it is a verb. Now, going back to nouns, you see, if it was a noun, what would it have in its ending? What would it have at the end? Exactly. It would have, if it was a noun, it would have tanween at the end. So tanween, remember that? So if we come back to where we are, all nouns that whatever they are, say rajulun, whatever they look like, they will always end in un. Rajulun, okay? Now, so remember that unless they had alif lam at the front of it, but even then, if you had alif lam at the end of it, it would still end in one dhamma, or rajulu, like that. But generally, otherwise, they'd all end in double, in tanween. So, coming back to here, now we know this does not end like that. Neither does it have alif lam stuck on it. So, this is a verb. whether we understand the meaning or not at this stage, but we know straight away we can identify this is a verb. Okay, so we've got that bit. Now, Samir asked that, is it same letters but different vowels? No, I mean, it will be different letters, but this is the structure, what they will look like. So if you take a look in his book, he has then introduced a verb on page 126. He's got this structure just as I've written it there. But beneath that, he's got kataba. Kataba written. Okay, so this is what he's got. He's got kataba. Now you can see from what I was talking about now that okay, that look, he's got that it's got 3 letters to it, as I mentioned. It's got 3 letters. Here it is. 1, 2, 3. 1. It's also got 3 vowels. It's ending like that. It's not ending in un. See, now without even knowing what that means, we straight away know that it is a verb and it is a past tense verb. So we've got some understanding. Okay, it's talking about some action. I'm not quite sure what it means, but I know it's an action and something to do with the past. Okay. Does anybody know? I know you probably just read that from the book, maybe. But does anybody know what that means, kataba? Any idea, people? Right. Na'am. Right is right. Okay, to write. Ahsant. Right, kataba. But more precisely, kataba actually means, it actually means he wrote. Okay, kataba, this pattern, what we're looking at, this fa'ala, actually refers to the he. Okay, this way of writing a verb like this, what we straight away understand from that verb is huwa kataba. He wrote. Now do remember that you see, when learning language, we have to be precise with the meaning. Now here, this is a past tense verb. So we do have to write it as a past tense verb. So not saying necessarily to write. Although when we introduce verbs, we may say to write, to read, to sit, to enter, to read and so on. But when we're actually translating, we'll translate them precisely. And that means he wrote. Huwa kataba. Okay. Now, okay, so that's fine. We understand huwa kataba. Now, I don't want to say huwa kataba. See, let me get rid of this here. I want to say here. Here. All right. Here, which is she. Here kataba, but here kataba just sounds like I'm an illegal immigrant and my visa's over to you because I need to be sent back because it's incorrect Arabic. Here kataba does not make sense. Any idea how it can? Does anybody actually know how to say she wrote? Amina's writing away. Na'am. Na'am la. Alright, some people have been doing their homework. That's good, that's good. Right, okay, so what happens is, you see, we have to show the pronoun. You see, in English, a verb just remains static. So I want to say, for example, ran. She ran, he ran, you ran, I ran, we ran, they ran. The word ran remains static. The pronoun before it keeps changing. I, she, you, we. In Arabic, it doesn't work like that. In Arabic, the verb itself gets an attached pronoun to it. So kataba is he wrote. Kataba is like the base, the template, the base form, which refers to he. The moment we want to say she, what we have to do is we have to, alright, okay, not do that. What we have to do is add a ta at the end, not a ta marbuta, a ta, regular ta, and then we put a sukoon on it. Now that Hiya katabat means she wrote. Okay, or hiya fa'alat. Fa'ala, which is the template which people usually use whilst learning, in its meaning is to do. So fa'ala means he did, fa'alat would mean she did. Okay, so hiya fa'alat or hiya katabat, she wrote. Right, okay, so that's one, how we're going to turn it into a she. What about trying to turn that into, if we don't want to say she, let me select, God, what's going on? Look at that. Right. Right. Okay. So I don't want to say she now. I want to turn it, and I'm going from third person to second person. I want to say anta. Anta, people. Anta. Anta. So what do I do in this case? In this situation, it's quite similar yet subtly different. What we'll do is get rid of, okay, if I want to say you wrote or you did, what we do is the ba, we give that a sukoon, katab, and then we give the ta a fatha, and it kind of rhymes with anta. So anta katabta, anta katabta. Right, so it's kind of rhyming, so it's easy to remember. So far we've had huwa kataba, huwa fa'ala, hiya fa'alat, or hiya katabat, anta katabta. So the ta rhyming with anta and with katabta. Okay, now as you probably guessed, for anti, you've probably guessed that already. Junaid, have you guessed it? Look at that, Junaid, just cheating, looking in the book there. Right. But yep, that's it. You got it, people. Look at this. A class of GNT students, gifted and talented. Right, so anti, it becomes katabti. Okay, so anti katabti. Once again, rhyming with anti, so easy to remember. So far we've had the katabta, we've had the katabti as well. Simple. That's not difficult at all. Or fa'alta and fa'alti. Right, now that just brings us on to the final example of I. Right, now this, alright, is slightly different. I mean, it doesn't quite rhyme in that sense, but once again, very important to say ana. Right, any idea, people? I know Amina's going to know this one. Yeah, there you go. Look at that. 2, that's it. Right, so some of you are definitely doing that 20-25 minutes a day. Alright, so ana katabtum. Okay, so as you can see, right, now that's kind of covered all 5 of them. So you've got the huwa fa'ala, hiya fa'alat, anta fa'alta, anti fa'alti, ana fa'altu. Right. Now, the other thing here, which I've not been mentioning, but is a question that when you speak, do you have to say, if I was saying, I did something, yeah, if somebody says, who did that, you say, I did, or I wrote. Would I have to say, ana katabtu, or could I just say katabtu? Any ideas? No. I mean, in that case, if I was speaking, or if anybody was speaking, if I want to say he did, or he went, or she went, or you did, or they ate, you don't have to actually mention this pronoun here. However, you can do. So it's optional. Sometimes people mention it, sometimes they leave it out. It's something which is not necessary, but it's an option. So just to remember that. Not necessarily, no. There isn't a more correct. It's just sometimes when it's mentioned, sometimes it can be added as an extra emphasis. As in when somebody's saying, I have done it, or he has, you know, like it's, having said that, people just use it casually as well. It doesn't have to, like sometimes I might, you know, somebody might say, أنا ذهبت إلى المسجد, or أنا قرأت هذا الكتاب, I read this book. You could just say قرأت هذا الكتاب, I read this book. It's not, it's exactly the same. It doesn't make a difference. It's not, so there is an option. But the point is that you know that there is an option. You don't have to. It might be good at this stage to always use them. That might be a good idea to kind of get the hang of it. And then later on, as you become more fluent in Arabic, bi'idhnillah, you can kind of let go of it. So that's a good point. So far we've taken a look at all of this. Now coming back to what we mentioned here. You see this archetype, fa'ala, he did. The first vowel and the last vowel, the fatha and the fatha there, are static. They will always remain like that. There will always be a fatha there. However, the middle, this one what we've got here, this is variable. Sometimes that may appear as a dhamma in some verbs it may appear as a kasra. Okay, so as just to note that out, so remember I'm speaking about the templates now. So every verb, as far as we're concerned, past tense verb, it will be three-lettered, it will be on this structure. The first radical fa, or the radical first letter, will have a fatha, the last letter will have a fatha, the middle letter, the radical ayn, if you like, will have a fatha, dhamma or kasra. It's variable, it can have either. So if we take a look at, we can just write here some examples. So if we've taken a look at kataba, but if I said, for example, to go, using the verb to go, as in went, he went. Any idea, people? What is he went? No? He went. Alright. Dhahaba. Look at that. Dhahaba. Now, in this case, Dhahaba. Yeah? On that note, right, any idea what is Dhahabun? I think you did that in your, what is the meaning of Dhahabun? This, which is a noun, not a verb, by the way. Excellent. Doc Majid, gold, look at that. Right, now gold. So that's quite interesting actually. You see, and why gold is called dhahab? Any ideas? Is Junaid type in? No? Gold? Dhahabun? No? Samir? Alright. Alright. Need money when you go somewhere. Sure do. But the reason is because gold, dhahab, yadhab, gold is something that leaves you, it goes. You see, no matter what, no matter how much you try to retain it, it will ultimately just go. You see, whether you'll one way or another, you'll never manage to retain it. Do you see what I mean? And so that's an interesting kind of way of looking at it, really. That dhahab, you know, yadhab, it goes. That's the thing. Whether you like it or don't like it. And you know, on a separate note, there, I mean, there is actually a hadith that that wealth is really what you have either, you know, it says ma akalta fa afnait, what you have eaten, so you know you've done away with, or it mentions or labista, or what you've worn, fa ablayt, and you've kind of allowed it to kind of ruin and wear and tear away on you. Or it mentions that tasaddaqta fa'amdayt, or it's something you gave in charity and therefore kind of sent it forward. And the hadith then mentions everything else is simply, irthatun turath or irthun yurath. Everything else is simply inheritance. And that's an interesting point. But coming back now to, so we've got dhahaba there, right? And in the case of dhahaba, we can see that there's a fatha on the middle ayn right there. Now, if you take a look at one which has a kasra, for example, sami'a. See, once again, you can see that the sin seems to have a fatha, the ayn seems to have a fatha, they're static, but the meme, the radical ayn, or the radical middle letter, seems to have a kasra. Sami'a. Any idea what sami'a is? Sami'a. Listen. Na'am. Sami'a Allahu liman hamida. Allah has heard, as you all recite in your salah, Sami'a Allahu li, and if you've done li, which means to, and we've done man, which is who, to who, hamida, once again on the same pattern, hamidahu, so whoever praised him. Okay, Allahumma rabbana wa lakal hamd. Shukran, Junaid. We're about to go into sujood now. So, I mean, that's something that you're reading all the time, but now you understand Allah has heard who has praised him. Sami Allahu liman hamida. Right, okay, now, moving on to where it has a dhamma. So, if we take a look at the example, da'ufa. So, da'ufa. Now in this case it has a dhamma. So what we know from this is that in some cases verbs, what we can learn is that verbs, although they will resemble each other and they'll fit the pattern, but the middle letter, the radical ayn, in some cases will have a fatha, in some cases it will carry a kasra, and in some cases it may be a dhamma. The dhamma is quite rare. Okay, out of all of them, it's seldom there. I mean, you will come across it on a few occasions, and that will generally be it. It won't seem to, you won't come across so many different verbs with a dhamma. Da'ufa is one, which means to be or become weak. Okay. Karuma is another one which I think you'll also pick up shortly in your book. Karuma, which means to be or become noble. And so, once again, you're going to note that this pattern of the dhamma is usually to do with a quality, and it's to do with becoming that quality usually. So this template, see, so now imagine you came across da'ufa or karuma, and you did not know what it meant, but you straight away know already. Okay, you straight away know that. Okay, I know this is a verb. I know it's a past tense verb. It's got a dhamma, so I know it's talking about kind of becoming something. It's to do with some type of quality or characteristic. It may be positive, it may be negative, but it's some type of... You see, so you've already got some understanding without... Now, you couldn't do that in English. Like, if you just came across a verb as in, it said something like, this person, I don't know, you said went or broke, or, it said something like, you wouldn't be able to just tell, you wouldn't even be able to tell whether it was a verb. You'd have to actually think, I mean, this could be anything. It could be a noun, it could refer to something, unless you had the semantics, the meanings to go with it. Right, okay, so that said, right, if we go back to our archetype, so this is it, fa'ala. Right, now the next thing is, that said, right, we've got now some rules basically in front of us. So these are the rules where they've been kind of written that all verbs will have these three radical essential letters. The initial and final vowel will be static, whereas the middle one can be any of the three, which we've just seen. And that the past tense verbs, when we want to conjugate them, and this is the word that is used when we talk about changing verbs into saying she went, I went, you went. The technical word for this is to conjugate. Okay, so they will be conjugated by having attached pronouns at the end. And it will kind of sound like this, like a-at-ta-ti-tu. And I know you're probably thinking, what on earth is that? But it's actually useful to perhaps to even just remember it like that, to think a-at-ta-ti-tu. I'm going to show you the template or the table. Here it is. Fa'ala, fa'alat, fa'alta, fa'alti, fa'altu. And as you can see, the endings are very much like that. Okay, so if we take a look, you've got the, I mean, if we just highlight the a, at, ta, ti, and tu. So it might even be worth your while just, you know, if you have to, just remembering it like that, like fa'ala, fa'alat, fa'alta, fa'alti, fa'altu. Okay, so because this is very important, and I will expect you to actually know this whole, know this type of pattern, especially on these five. So say fa'ala, fa'alat, he did, she did, you did, I did. Right. Now, okay, if I've said that, right, if you want to actually make a quick note of those rules before we move on to another point, I mean, if you want to make a quick note of these rules. Yeah, I mean, you will be able to download these slides as well. Sometimes the reason I do ask you to sometimes make notes and to make, it's just so it doesn't become a, you see, what I don't want is it to just become like a total lecture or you're just watching something, because passive learning is never really too good. So no, but yeah, I mean, for memorization, it will, but also for active learning. You see, when you're sitting down, you're writing something, you're contemplating. Maybe, you know, you're reading and you think, wait a minute, what does he actually mean? So you can ask me a question right there. Maybe, I mean, the slides will be available. You have to process the whole thing. I mean, I think it is very crucial to kind of make, when I'll say like, okay, make some notes, or when I'm mentioning something, to make notes. You will get access to all the slides, I mean, regardless. But I think it is very important that you do, you know, simultaneously make kind of notes. Right. Okay, that said, we move on to now. Shall I? Is it okay to change it? You okay? Good to go? You ready? Yep. Good. Look at that. All right. What's that? Running out. Got no idea. Yeah, sir, you got to stop drinking. Right, so pronouns, yes, of course. What I meant by that is this thing, that these are the attached pronouns at the end. So that ta at the end is she, and that ta is you, and t is you, and the tu is the pronoun I. This is why you don't need to say ana fa'altu. You can just say fa'altu and it's understood, because the tu is an attached pronoun which has come and, you know, it's been attached to the end of the verb. It's been conjugated. It's kind of, that's how we know it means I. That's what I meant by that. Yeah, excellent, no problem. Right, okay, now going back to, right, this. Now in English, you see, most sentences, I say most, in fact I think all sentences are like verbal sentences. Because in English, every sentence, the way you describe a nominal, or nominal means to do with nouns, or a verbal sentence, in English it's whether the sentence has a verb in it. Now in Arabic, that's not how we describe nominal or verbal sentences. A verbal sentence is a sentence which begins with a verb. And a nominal sentence is a sentence which begins with a noun. Now, in English, you can never begin a sentence with a verb. But in Arabic, you can. So, you couldn't say, like I can say now, taking a look at this, let's use Amr as an example, because it's a bit awkward. So if we say Amr Zahaba. See, Amr went. Now, I can equally, in Arabic, I can say Zahaba Amr. And it's identical. Except this one will be technically, no, none of them are more correct. Although sometimes there seems to be a bit more of a style of saying the verb sometimes before the subject. So this is the verb. And saying it sometimes before the subject. But that is not a more correct. Alright, across the road. Good one. I like that. You see, the difference is, I'll tell you the difference. In English, what I meant was that their definition of a sentence is different. You see, for them, they will call this Amrun Dhahaba still a verbal sentence because it contains a verb. And then in English, every sentence contains a verb because there will be an auxiliary verb like is or am or are. But in Arabic, it's to do with whatever begins the sentence. So if you begin the sentence with a noun, it will be known as a nominal sentence, okay? Not writing that very well, but nominal, okay? And if it begins with a verb, it will be a verbal sentence. Now, and both are equally correct in Arabic. To say Amrun Dhahaba or Dhahaba Amrun, both are correct. And you can go either ways and you can do that. Arabic has a lot of flexibility like that. So that's a good thing. You are right, Amina, that you can, like, I suppose, begin with an imperative, as in, don't sit. But I mean, that's what, speaking about just general complete sentences, I suppose not, I wasn't referring to imperatives or commands, but just general sentences, you couldn't begin with a regular verb, like you couldn't say went, Umar, in that sense. You'd have to say Umar went. So I meant more in that sense. So this is the key distinction, and he just mentioned this in his book, and you're going to probably see this going over it. That's just to clarify for your, for you guys, so you don't get confused. In the nominal sentence, this thing will be referred to as a, and I won't go into this too much now, but later on we will. The subject is the subject, S, and whatever completes the sentence is known as the predicate, or predicate, sorry. And that's a nominal sentence, or subject and a predicate. Isn't doing the crossing. It's not relevant. Yep, the road isn't doing the crossing. That's an imperative. You see, when you say cross, in Arabic, whenever you give an imperative command, there is a pronoun hidden, which is referring to the you. So as in you sit, or you write, or you. That's in the Arabic language. I'm assuming, the same kind of semantics carry across. So subject and predicate, that's for a nominal sentence, and verb and subject is for a verbal sentence. Okay, you're probably thinking, why is all of this important? This is important later on in Arabic. We will start doing things like analyses and dissecting sentences, so we'll kind of break them up. So we'll say like jalis, you sit. No, jalis is sitting, but we're going to come to that soon, inshallah. So ijlis is actually the command for sit, but I mean that's something that will come a little later on, how to make commands. But the main thing here is that later on we will do a lot of breaking sentences down and saying, okay, this is the subject, this is the predicate, this is the verb, this is the subject, and so on. So this is kind of like a trailer, if you like, for that. So right, that said, a little thing here. If you, by the way, those of you that are interested in knowing the Arabic terminologies, right, okay, I'll explain that. Right, a sentence, if it begins with, so if a sentence essentially has two things in it. If it's a noun, we're talking about sentences just to do with nouns. Like if I said now, Zayd is jalis, Zayd is sitting. Zaydun jalisun. Okay, Zayd is sitting. Now Zayd is the subject. Right. I'll tell you what, I'll change this ink so kind of appear a bit clearer. So Zayd is jalis. Zayd is the subject. Subject, which in Arabic, for those of you wanting to know the Arabic terminology, is what we call mubtada. Mubtada. Okay, so right, so mubtada, which actually means what you begin with. It's what you want to talk about. And jalis, when we're saying, well, what is Zayd? Zayd is sitting. So that's what he's doing. So jalis is the predicate. It's whatever you want to actually say about it. So what is it that you want to actually, what is the meaningful information that you want to tell somebody? That is the predicate. It's what really completes your sentence in that. And in Arabic, that's called the khabar. Which really is what you want to say. So if I said Zayd marid, Zayd is ill, that's what I really want to say. Even if the sentence was long, even if I want to say Zayd, who lives down the road and has been your friend for whatever, so many years and went to university with you, is ill. So basically the ill, or is now better, or has whatever I want to say, that is the significant part of my telling you, is the predicate, is the khabar. Right, okay, now that said, a little note here, guys. Anybody know what this means? Let me write this up. That's thumma. Thumma. Any idea what thumma is? Then. Good. Right, it is then. So, what about this? Just the fa on its own. What's that? Then as well? Yep, that's then as well. So, any distinction between the two people? Can we think of any distinction between these two? Na'am, la, na'am. No? Dunno. Anything else? No? Anybody? That? Okay, this is interesting. Right. Okay, so let me tell you. Right, they both mean then. However, sorry, I'll go back to that one, then I'll write an example. You see, they both mean then. However, thumma, the first one here that you've seen, right, suggests a lapse of time. So if I said here, so if I said, I don't know, let's take the name Musa. Right, so Musa dakhala thumma kharaja. What does kharaja mean? That's getting so. Yeah, so he left. Right, so Musa dakhala thumma kharaja. Now the exact same sentence that Musa dakhala, but as opposed to thumma kharaja, fa. So if you join that, fa kharaja. Oh, why is my board moving? Fa kharaja. So if I had said this, the same sentence but with this ending just different, that's all. Musa dakhala thumma kharaja, or Musa dakhala fa kharaja. The difference would be that in the first one it would mean he entered and stayed there for a while, and then afterwards he left. But if I said Musa dakhala fa kharaja, it means he entered and left immediately. Okay? Fa is immediate, and thumma is, it necessitates a lapse of time. And yeah, Junaid, you typing something? Right, so that's just a, so as you see, from that there is an interesting point, just to kind of go off on a little about Surah Takathur. Right, okay, ألهاكم التكاثر تزرتم المقابر كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون. Yep, because even this, like then, meaning after a lapse of time, meaning when you reach the hereafter, you will then surely come to know. No, not in kun fayakun. That is be, and it is immediate. You see, the other interesting thing is that once there was, I mean, not to digress too much, but there was some interesting research on things like on creation before Adam alayhi salam. And you know, there's been a lot of debate and discussion about things like, and I don't mean evolution or anything, but what I mean is like things like Neanderthal man, and you know, all these other Homo erectus and all these other hominids that were before, let's say, modern man, Homo sapien. Now, the interesting thing is that, you see, because there's two theories here, that one is that Adam alayhi salam came, and all of these things kind of came after him. Or the other theory is that perhaps many of these other hominids came before him, and then he came. Either ways, I mean, both are theories. I mean, we don't really know the absolute reality. None are in contradiction with the Sharia. One just suggests that humans kind of, they came and then I suppose they took a bit of a dip, and then they've kind of, if they were following on, if you believe all of them were through Adam, like all the other hominids, then it kind of suggests that I suppose they kind of took a huge dip and, you know, became these cavemen and so on, and then later on for some reason, you know, humans rose suddenly again. Or that these other creatures were there and they were just resembled human beings, but they weren't actually insan. And this is a book that a scholar had written quite recently, who's an archaeologist, and he's written this, and he's called it in Arabic that My Father Adam and the Story of Creation Between Fact and Fiction. And in there he kind of makes a distinction between insan and bashar, between humans as in modern man, and between bashar as in the whole hominid genus. But he mentions that, well, he says that, you know, all of us are from, and this is undoubted, all of us, all humans, as in we, insan, are all from, are Bani Adam and from Adam. But there were hominids and creatures before that resembled human beings but were not actually like us. But the verse that he refers to, and that's why I mentioned that, he mentions a verse where Allah says in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَاكُمْ, that we did create you. ثُمَّ, and then Allah uses ثُمَّ صَوَّرْنَاكُمْ, and then after a lapse of time we gave you formation. ثُمَّ, then Allah mentions, then قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ, then we said to the angels, prostrate to Adam. Now that verse apparently suggests that we were created, then after a lapse of time we were given form, then Adam came along and the angels prostrated to him. And that's interesting. I mean, that's one of the things that he kind of draws upon. But that's an interesting point anyway. I suppose that's for more of a discussion some other time. Now coming back to this here. So we've got that. This is also something he's explaining just before Unit 11 kind of begins, really, what I've just covered there with Thumma. Right, there's one little point here that I'm about to mention, which I did mention last time, which is to do with the Hamzatul Wasl, when a Hamza joins on, and joining two letters. Now, quite similar to that rule, but slightly different, is what if we have two silent letters? So, the word, the sentence, Al-Bintu, Al-Bintu, or in fact, sorry, let's make it, let's bring it the other way. So, Dha'ufat, let's put this here. Right, so let's just, anyway, right, I'll write it again. Right, Dha'ufat became weak, let's say, putting that here. That's not a good, let me write it again, people. It's not very clearly written. I'll write it again. See, you can, Dha'ufat, to become weak. Dha'ufat til bint. So we've got here al-bint. Now the interesting thing here is that both of these words, as you can see, this has got a silent letter, and now this is silent as well. So, Dha'ufat til bint. Now, you cannot read two silent letters in Arabic. So, wherever two silent letters come across each other, the silence must be broken. And the way you do that is you give it a kasra. So, that will be read as Dha'ufat til bint. Okay, Dha'ufat til bint. So, that's a rule. I mean, that likewise as well, I mean, just make a quick note of that. Right, now, that's kind of, it's quite a bit, let's move on to, let's go back to our verbs. Right, now, here's an example. We said, this is a complete section, Dhahaba, Dhahabat, Dhahabta, Dhahabti, Dhahabtu. Now, I will want you to kind of, in your own time, to kind of really memorize this type of pattern of a'atatitu. So, fa'ala, fa'alat, fa'alta, fa'alti, fa'altu. And it's a good tip, really, that when you come across a new verb, to kind of maybe write it out in all five of its type of conjugations, just so you can learn it a bit easier and it settles in. Right, now that said, I'd like you to kind of complete this, really. I mean, even if you, I'm just thinking, even if you can just maybe verbally now and then later on, maybe you can actually complete it. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, if you're supposed to, or actually, you know what, have an actual go. Have a go to write down at least, yeah, I mean, just have a go actually. It shouldn't take that long to really just write this. You don't have to write the whole thing. As in, you don't have to write the example that I've given. But you can see each one's got something missing, so they have a, I mean, just on your own, where you're jotting down, just to kind of get a bit of, I mean, you can just do it rough and later on just do it Well, but I'd like you to kind of just, whilst you're there, just have a little practice at that, the alimat. What's after that? What would be before that? I'm just going to give you a minute really or two to do that. Even if you can't complete the whole thing, but at least you can just have a little try at some of it. You can see the last one, I didn't even give you what it was, I just gave you the meaning because I want to see if you could fill that in. Just going to give you a few more seconds, and this is really just to get the flavor. I'm not expecting you to have, completed the whole thing, but just right now I wanted you to kind of, a bit of a hands-on approach as opposed to just keep constantly listening, that you have a little go on your own. Because in a moment I'm going to ask you, so I thought I'll let you practice a bit before I ask you. Just say 20 more seconds. Alright, okay. Is that good? Some of your mics are not activated, by the way. Oh, Junaid, yours wasn't. Yeah, you can suppose cancel yours. But, right, so I'll start off with whoever's on top of the list, and we'll just work my way down. Right, is that Samir? No, that's you, Junaid.
That's not me.
Is that not you? Right, okay, let's go to the top of the list. So Samir, are you active? Are you on? Yep. Right, okay. Go on then. Samir, I'm going to give you a verb. I'm going to want you to kind of conjugate it. So, okay, kharaja. Can you hear me? Kharaja.
Which one, sorry?
Kharaja.
Kharaja, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so
No,
kharaja.
Can you say that? All
Kharajat.
Yeah.
So kharaja.
Yep.
So kharaja, kharajat. Kharajta, kharajti, kharajtu.
Good. Okay, excellent. Right. Okay, cool. I'm gonna give everybody just a quick verb, so I'll just let everybody so you can hear everybody else as well, and everybody can just get a go as well. So Mahdi, yours, for some reason, Mahdi, your thing isn't. It says you're not accepting not activating it. Right. Okay. I suppose till yours activates, Mahdi. All right. Then shukran for that, Samir. Yasser, can you conjugate jalasa to sit? Jalasa.
Jalasa.
Yep.
Jalasat.
Right.
Jalasta.
Yep.
Jalastu.
Right. Excellent. Shukran. Were you just reading that off somewhere? Right. Okay, Khan. Mahdi, yours is still not. It says it's still not transferring. Okay, Ripon. Okay, Shukran, Yasser. Right. Okay. Ripon, Alima, to know. Ripon. Alright. Ripon. Hello. Ripon? We can't. Are you there? Right, okay, Ripon. Alima. I I think there's a thumma going on here. There's a super lapse of time going on. Okay, I think I can hear you now. Ripon, is that you? No? Okay. No, I can't hear you. Okay, so controls Mahdi. For some reason, yours ain't responding. It's just, I suppose, one of those days. Go on then. Right. Great. Who have we got to? Junaid. Majid. Dr. Majid. Hello, is the doctor on call? Alaikum salam.
Yes, I am actually.
Okay. Alright, you're on call. Right, okay, so Alima. Naam.
So, Alama.
Alima.
No.
Alima.
Okay, so, Alima.
Naam.
Alimat.
Naam.
Alimta.
Good.
Alimti. Alimtu.
Good. But try and say them a bit quicker. Try and say them like Alima, Alimat, Alimta, Alimti, Alimtu. You know, that type of speed.
Okay, so Alima.
So,
Alim.
Alimat.
Alimta. Alimti. Alimtu.
Good. Okay, cool. Shukran. You know, also when you say, by the way, for everybody as well, you know when you say like alimat, remember it has like a very soft, like a T type of thing at the end of it. Okay, alimat. Okay, cool. Is it right? Okay then. Shukran, Doc. Right, Nadeem, are you there? Oh, damn, have I just blocked you? Nadeem? So Jahila.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam. Jahila, to be ignorant, not obviously for you, but this is one of the examples in book. So, how would you conjugate that?
Jahila, jahilat, jahilta, jahilti, jahaltu.
Good, excellent. Shukran. Right. Okay, Jazakumullah khair. And Amina, for how to say akala, which means to eat. Akala. Akala. Main point is that if we can all kind of try and learn this, so it's second nature. Mahdi, just trying to see what is Mahdi having.
Yeah, the problem is after you send the request, he's saying that he's losing. Oh, he's saying I've sorted it now.
Oh, you sorted it. Okay. So go on then. I'll check if Mahdi is still there. Right. Okay. I'll send that to you again. Right. Okay. Mahdi.
Assalamu alaikum.
Hello. Wa alaikum assalam. Is that Mahdi?
Yep.
Is it the Imam Mahdi? So we've been the long-awaited Mahdi. Right. Okay. So. Right. Okay. So if we say shariba to drink, not that I'm indicating anything or giving any references here, hints, but I mean shariba. How would you conjugate that to drink?
Shariba, sharibat, sharibta, sharibti, sharibtu.
Good. Okay, excellent. Ahsan. So you fixed your problem, lillahi alhamd. Right, okay, so guys, that was, I mean, that's good to hear you guys conjugating, but it's also important to know that, you know, we can conjugate these verbs and we've got to know them, right? Like, you know, like I said, second nature, that's how they've got to be. Right, before I actually go on to the homework, I'll mention that I'll just summarize basically the things we've kind of been going through today, really. So just to kind of just taking a look again. Right, so we've understood sun letters and moon letters, and they're those letters which when they precede the definite article al, the lam, is either pronounced or not pronounced. And the reason they're called sun letters is because in the word shams, it's not pronounced. And in the word qamar, they are pronounced. So sun letters and moon letters. And once again, this is not something which you'll have to memorize, but inshallah something which you'll just understand with time. And this was an example of them. And as you practice that, and you're going to get a chance to read that, it's in your book. Many of the similar examples are in your book that you'll get used to them. Right, then there were further demonstrative nouns, like things like hada and hadihi, this is, or dhalika and tilka. Tilka is the feminine for that is. Okay. Now, we also mentioned before we got to that whenever you do add an l onto a noun, it loses its tanween. So we covered that as well. Right. Are you making notes of these, by the way? I can see you typing or you're texting. So, okay. And then we kind of recapped on the personal pronouns, words that refer to me, you, she, things like that, known as personal pronouns, huwa, hiya, anta, anti, ana, in that order. We also spoke about why certain letters in the Arabic language are written extra in order to kind of help distinguish them. So things like the alif on ana, or we took a look at the waw in amr, and things like this where they are sometimes written extra. We kind of went over that. We had some practice in writing that, just trying to see, and words like mi'a, which mean 100. Right, then moving on to the past tense verb, and we took a look at the archetype, the template, which is fa'ala, which actually means he did, which is fa'ala, which actually means he did, okay, or the verb to do. We understood as a rule that all past tense verbs will have this basis. They'll have three radical letters, that the first and the last will have a static fatha. The middle letter can either have a fatha, dhamma, or kasra. And we looked at examples for this. So sami'a, where it's got kasra, dhahaba, and da'ufa, where it's got dhamma. We understood that when it has a dhamma, that this is quite infrequent, quite rare. When it does come, it's usually referring to a quality or characteristic in a person. Also, we took a look at this example, Sami'a Allahu liman hamida, Allah has heard, or Allah has listened to liman, whoever hamida, or whoever praised him. Okay. That said, we then, just moving on, we then took a look at, so that was the rule, we then took a look at how we conjugate this verb, and we do that by attaching pronouns at the end of it, which make an a, at, ta, ti, tu sound. Okay, and we took a look at those examples as fa'ala, fa'alat, fa'alta, fa'alta, fa'alti, fa'altu. That's the template, by the way, and this was an example of dhahaba, dhahabat, dhahabta, dhahabti, dhahabtu. And then one example where we were to complete this table, inshallah we can complete that as part of, we can have a go at that later on as part of your homework, or just to go over it, to kind of practice that. And some of you did that, and then in person, over the mic as well, you've had a go. So inshallah that's quite a bit when we take a look at it. We also took a look at things like what thumma meant and the distinction between thumma and shra, and how sentences are divided into nominal or verbal sentences, and that's to do with how they begin in Arabic. So if they begin with a noun, it's called a nominal sentence, and if they begin with a verb, it's called a verbal sentence. We did go into some technical words for them if you're interested in, like a nominal sentence like Zaydun Jalisun, the subject, which in Arabic we call the mubtada, and the predicate in Arabic, which we call the khabar. We also then took a look at, just taking this up, we took a look at when two sukoons meet in Arabic, you must break the silence with a kasra. Okay, and it's interesting because kasra actually means to break. Okay, so you break the silence. Just remember that if two silent letters, you've got to break it. So that's, and to break it is to use a kasra. So all that said, alhamdulillah, that's really just being the second lesson in, alhamdulillah. So we've covered quite a bit. We also took a look at an interesting digressive note there about Neanderthal man and things like this, which are quite interesting. Right, but today what I'd like you to do is on page 115 to 116, you've got, if you could read thoroughly the units 7 to 9. Read through them, and when you're reading them, do try and pronounce them as though you're Arabs. So, you know, have a go. So, you know, even if you've got to record yourself, play it back to yourself, kind of see, how do I sound? Do I sound good? And, nah, that don't sound right. You know, delete that, do it again. See what I mean? So have a go at things like that. Then I'd like you to write and translate the units 10 to 11. And you can see that it's page 117 to 119. I've listed the pages there as well. Once again, it's something which is going to, it's just really what we've been doing now, but it's going to give you some practice. Then on page 121, you've got your vocabulary, and it does say on it glossary lesson 2. I'd like you to copy that. And then you've got exercise 20, which is on page 136, which I'd like you this time to take a look at it. Number 1, which is once again similar to the previous exercise, just something which you're going to read and practice. The section 2 is which you're going to translate into Arabic. There is an important note I'd like to make, that when you do your homework this time, if you could, kindly please, once you've scanned it, and all of you scanned it well, reasonably well, once you've scanned it, if you're using a software, let's say, which many of you are through your phones and things like this, if you can kind of put it into one file. So I don't know if I think, yeah, actually some of you did do that last time. I know Yasser, you did that last time. So if you've kind of, I don't know, if you've taken photographs of it, usually your phone, it will give you an option. So you can kind of, I know like Jotnot Pro on the iPhone does that, where you've got that type of, where you can tweet it together and make it into one file, and then you can send it as one document. Because it really takes up so much time in trying to, because when I returned your homework, I did kind of put it together as one document. But to download each one separately, and then I've got to save each one separately, and then I've got to kind of annotate it separately, and then put it back as one file and upload it as one file, and it just takes up a lot of unnecessary time. And it is a lot easier if I could just get your homework in one file, and then I could store it as that type of this was, for example, lesson 2 homework, and it's just stored as that under your name. So I mean, if you could do that, it shouldn't really be difficult. I mean, once again, if you are stuck on how to do that, feel free to always contact Junaid. Junaid should have, he's the learning support and technician. He should have contacted everybody by now. But I mean, if you are struggling on, let's say, some software, any other software issues to do with, I don't know, some of you were struggling with your microphones and things like that. If you want a bit of advice or tips, just contact Junaid and text him or WhatsApp him, which is going to bring me on to my second point. So if we could do that, that would be yeah, we have covered a lot this lesson, but complicated compared to you? Or you mean the book is complicated, or is that doing the uploading complicated? As in, not quite sure what's complicated. Right. Book difficult to understand. Oh no, I mean it'll be simple, inshallah. Just once again, you know, just give it that 20-25 minutes a day. Inshallah, yassarallah, yassarallah. I mean the whole book, the whole point is that, you know, you can take a look at it, you can try and read ahead, but I mean when we're going through the lesson, we'll thoroughly explain everything. So I mean you won't have much to worry about. Now, that being said, I would like to suggest one more suggestion, and then we're done, inshallah. You can kind of log off. I know we began late, that's why we kind of hopefully next week we won't have that problem. I mean, it was really we did actually send out the invitations at 9 o'clock, but for some reason they were not being received today, and hopefully we've overcome it. We figured out what the issue was. If I was aiming to kind of set up a WhatsApp group as well, where we're all on it. So if we need to say anything,